Hello, good day. I am here with another series review. We're talking about The Last Hours by Cassandra Clare today. Isn't it fun when I get to have all books to show you in a video? I think it's fun. But this is a series in the Shadowhunters world by Cassandra Clare. If you don't know anything about Shadowhunters, I don't know what to tell you. This is not a good place to start. But in this series, we follow basically like a next gen series to the Infernal Devices series. So I recommend having read that before reading this, but like it's not necessary. I'm not gonna spoil it for you either, so here we are. Let me give you a synopsis for this series. Spoiler free, of course, because this entire video is spoiler free. But basically, at the start of the first book, there haven't been demon attacks for years, and all of a sudden, they were starting to come back out of nowhere, which at first doesn't seem concerning, but then we start noticing that the attacks are happening during the day, and that isn't a thing that demons usually do, so things are questionable. And then we follow a cast of characters, and one of the characters we follow, because it's an ensemble cast, but one of the characters we follow is James, and he is Tessa's son, and Tessa is a warlock slash shadow hunter, so James is a child of two shadow hunters slash one warlock. It's complicated. So he also kind of has demon powers, and part of that has been that he's been being able to enter this kind of like shadow realm. And as these attacks are happening, he seems to delve into the shadow realm more and more, and it seems to be connected to it somehow. And yeah, that was a shit synopsis, but honestly, I don't know how to give you a synopsis for this, so that's all you get. So let's get into the ranking. Spoiler alert, it's the same order as the books were published in. Chain of Gold is my favorite, then Chain of Iron, and then Chain of Thorns is my least favorite. I annotated these books, and I feel like you can very much tell by my tabs that it goes from favorite to least favorite. Let's get into individual reviews of these books. I feel like this whole video is nonsensical, but oh well. The first book in this series is Chain of Gold. Like I said before, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely love this book. Actually, upon my first read, I gave it 4 stars, and I really enjoyed it, but I said I wasn't a big fan of the cast of characters and just wasn't attached to them as much. And now, as someone who has reread this, I'm like, stupid. That's the best part of this book, the characters and the friendship that they have. This is a fun illustration of a cast of characters, but the dynamic and the friendship between them is easily the best part of this book. That being said, though, I also think this book had a really fun plot and a really engaging plot. It did start off a bit slow, but I do feel like we do a good job dropping hints and puzzle pieces throughout the beginning that eventually like fall into place as we continue on with this book and learn more. So I had so much fun reading it, and I also quite like the different relationships that I set up in this book, because, you know, it's a Cassandra Clare book, there's gotta be romance. So I quite like what was being set up in here on that front, besides one relationship that I just don't really care about. But like overall, I do think everything that was set up pretty well, and I had such a fun time reading this book that I got so excited to finally like rereading the book the second time. I got so excited to read the rest of the series, and I am sad to tell you that the rest of the series was a bit of a disappointment to me. But let's first talk about Chain of Iron, which is book 2, and I give 10 out of 5 stars to. This was still alright. I just thought this had a really slow start. Like I said before, Chain of Gold also has a pretty slow start, but I feel like we do a well enough job with breadcrumbs in the beginning, even if it seems all a bit disconnected and like it takes a bit for it all like fully to sink in and get going. I feel like that wasn't really the case for this book. I feel like for a big chunk of this book, we just kind of did nothing. I mean, we did like personal drama stuff, but I wasn't that engaged with it, and then it took a little bit to like actually get a semblance of the plot and what was going on. Once we got into that story, I was so excited to read and keep reading. I thought the plot was really fun. Once again, we started getting it, and I loved theorizing about what could possibly be happening, because I feel like with Chain of Gold, you also had to like, I also had my theories when I was reading, but I feel like there were more puzzle pieces, so it was easier to figure out. But in this one, like I said, for a big chunk of this book, there barely are any puzzle pieces. So when we then actually get into the plot, it's a lot of figuring out, even like small stuff. But I really liked that, and I liked having my own theories and coming up with shit. I also thought it was very action packed. I was having so much fun with this book in like the middle section, and then I think the resolution to the main plot was very anticlimactic, and I wasn't a big fan of it. I felt like it was over in like 2 pages, and I was like, what we've been building to this for so long, and it's like defeated so easily, like no. And then again we go into a chunk of personal drama, and I feel like that was just characters making dumb decision after dumb decision, and that felt a bit out of character, as all of these characters have been known to make smart decisions and to have a brain, and all of a sudden their brain left them in the last chunk of this book, and it was so frustrating. And then the last book in the series is Chain of Thorns, which I give 2 to 5 stars to. I just have to say that this book is god awful. The only reason it is a 2-star, not a 1-star, is because I have such an attachment to the world, to the characters, and when it comes to like the little moments in this book, I genuinely got a lot of joy out of them. But when it comes to the actual storyline of this book, I thought it was just very, very bad. I felt like this book was made like written by someone who was just given a quick summary of the first 2 books, because the amount of plot holes in this book, it's just brain numbing. And I don't know how that happened, that there was such a disconnect between what happened in those first 2 books and then this one, that there are so many plot holes all over the place. Even within this book there's quite a few plot holes. It's not just a plot hole compared to the rest of the series, it's also sometimes a plot hole compared to itself, so that just wasn't fun to read. And then also, you know how I said with Chain of Iron that the book ends with the characters just making dumb decision after dumb decision? Well, that continues in this book. That's just the entire plot of this book, is the characters just making such stupid decisions and being so incredibly selfish, and it made it also very hard to like root for them. Like 2 of the characters in the series that I quite enjoyed in the first book, I absolutely despised by the end of this book, because they were just the worst example of that stupid decision and selfishness that every character had to a certain extent in this book, that just didn't feel right. And I did not have a good time with this book overall. I also think when it comes to like the plot that was there, it was very simple in my opinion. It wasn't as fun or action packed or like engaging as the other 2 books. It was very simple, and I figured everything out before the characters did, because it was also very obvious, and then I just felt like screaming at the characters for not figuring it out, because it was so simple and they were taking such a long time to figure things out. And again, as an ending, the way things got resolved felt very anticlimactic, especially because this is a thing that we've been building 3 books towards, and just the way things happened, I was just like, that's it. But something that is interesting for this series that I've never had before with this series is that I did spoiler-filled vlogs for all 3 of these books. I have to say that for Shale of Gold, the spoiler vlog is from my first read-through, so some of my thoughts might have changed that are portrayed in that vlog. But if you have read these books, or just don't give a shit about spoilers, you can go watch those videos and know like my full in-depth thoughts on these books, because I feel like spoiler free this video is kind of shitty. I still have to wrap up this video with some of my overall thoughts on this series. I think overall the series did have an interesting storyline. It was executed stronger in some books than others, but the overall journey of the series was interesting in my opinion. I also thought it had a great cast of characters with really strong friendships that remains true even if I didn't like some of the characters by the end. I do still think that when it comes to the friendship group, it is very strong and really well done, and I think that's something Cassandra Clare is good at in general. In most of her series, that's my takeaway, is that I love the friendship group in it, and this is no exception to that. Like I said with Chain of Thorns, I love the little moments, and at Chain of Thorns that's the only thing I loved, but I loved the little moments throughout the entire series, just those little moments of the characters just existing and not really having to worry about like the plot or like interpersonal drama. They just get to have like the small moments together, and those are always my favorite in this entire series. And yes, and yeah, for me the series started off really strong but ended up really terrible for me. Something that did surprise me with the series is that I liked the historical setting. I wasn't a fan of the infernal devices because I don't think the setting really worked for me. I always preferred the modern day Shadowhunter books, so the Mortal Instruments and the Dark Artifices. And even though I still prefer those two series above this one because of how it ended, it's not the historical setting that bothered me. I actually quite liked how that was incorporated into the story and into this world, and I liked it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this series. This video is not going to be interesting, I'm so sorry, but I still felt the need to make it just for completionist sakes. If you want to discuss this book with me, these books with me in spoiler details, you can go to my spoiler vlogs, but if you feel like not watching those because they're really long, you can also comment on this comment section. Just leave a little spoiler one at the top of your comments so people who watch this video but haven't read the books yet know not to read your comment. And that's everything I have to say for today, so
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated? Should've played